So we're gonna make some mashed potatoes, and they're gonna be starchy, they're gonna be creamy, they're gonna be rich and delicious because we're gonna use butter and cream. Okay, so I've got 3 russets, 3 washed russets, and we're gonna peel them, and we're gonna cut them up, and they're gonna go in a pot. I love these peelers. Link down in the description. You can get them on Amazon, pack of 3 for like 12 bucks. We're gonna take off an end and an end, which makes it so we can just pull strips off real easy. Those traditional like vertical peelers they're not easy to use. They're not effective. Like that was easy. Take off the top, take off the bottom, take off some strips, just working your way around. And you know, potatoes have like these little eyes where they want to sprout out from. So after you get all these strips off, take off an eye, another one, another one. Otherwise they leave little brown flecks in your mashed potatoes. And it's not the end of the world, and then there's a little dark spot. Goodbye, dark spot. And one more. There's just 4 of us having dinner tonight. So if you think about how many potatoes do I have 3. So it's not like a whole potato per person, but I guess you could do that much if you wanted maybe some leftovers for lunch the next day. All right, here we go. I'm gonna clean up and then we'll cut these guys up. We wanna cut these in a uniform shape and size so they cook all the same. If you cut them really small but uniform, you're gonna lose all your starch out into your water. And then you pour the water off and there goes all your starch from the potatoes, and then your mashed potatoes are not as creamy and starchy and amazing. If you cut them too big, they will take forever to cook, and then the outsides of the potatoes will start to disintegrate before they get cooked all the way through. So again, you end up kind of in the same boat of losing all the starch and actually losing a lot of the potato material that you started with in the first place. Here we go, long ways first, in half. And then, let's see, I got a little ugly spot right there. I don't want that. Goodbye, ugly spot. So we're gonna go 1, 2, so thirds, and then slices. How big are my slices? They're about that thick. So what is that, maybe half of a finger wide? Same on this guy. And if you had much larger potatoes, obviously, you know, adjust them down. Let's see, you see that guy? All right. And you can always set yourself like a demo. It's like, oh, I like how I cut that. I'm gonna make them all this size. I'm gonna put it right in front of me. So I got something to measure against. That would be kind of a way to do it in the restaurant. You come up to a prep guy, oh, what's this? There's some weird stuff going on in this potato. So I'm gonna take it out. Now I have less mashed potatoes. Well, that's okay. Because I think I can still work with this guy a little bit. Yep. It's not the end of the world. He just opened up on the inside. All right. These are going in a pot, and we're going to cover them with some cold water. Cold water is important because we want the potatoes to come up to temperature from room temperature or from cold. Putting potatoes into hot boiling water will affect the starch content, and it'll make it so you end up with gummy or even sandy and mealy potatoes. They can really change and create variability in the texture in the starch content. So cold water. All right, so this is a 3-quart pot, and you can see that it is filled with water, and you know, it's maybe half potatoes and half water. So these guys have a lot of room to move around and for me to stir them without breaking them up. You don't want to overcrowd your pot too much, because then you're going to end up having a really hard time to get these to cook through equally and at the same time. And we're going to go kosher salt, and enough so the water actually has some salinity to it. I mean, not so much that it tastes like the ocean, but you know, kind of pushing up against that edge. You could use pink Himalayan, you could use sea salt. I just usually go kosher because when I use the salts that have the minerality in them, like a Redmond's or a pink Himalayan, you get a lot of like material that floats up to the top, just stuff. How much? You're gonna have to taste it. So I'm trying to be really nice to these coated pots. So I got these silicone spoons. I'll throw a link in the description. I'm pretty happy with them. I like how they're working out. They're not too big, and they're making it so I'm not destroying these pots so fast. I was not so kind to the last couple pots I had. You could use your hands to do this too, whatever you're comfortable with. And like I said, you gotta taste it. And getting salt in now is important because getting it in later, it ends up tasting salty versus potatoey. And salt's important because it is going to bring out flavor. And later when we add butter and cream, we're diluting all that salt that we would have in the potatoes. So then we have to fight and add more to get it to taste good. All right. Salty enough. Now we're going on the stove. We're going to bring it up to a boil and then down to a simmer. Okay, they're coming up to a boil. And before they do get to a boil, they'll start like accumulating all this foam. And I don't want to boil them until they're tender. I want to simmer them until they're tender. So I give them a little stir here. And we got some good bubbles coming, but I'm gonna let it like kind of come up and roll a little bit. And you stir them, bring the hot ones at the bottom to the top. I've got my fancy silicone spoon. It's not that fancy, it's actually really cheap. And you can see how much water is in here. Like these guys are well below the surface. You know, I don't have any corners sticking up out of the top. And if you walk away from this, it will boil over onto your stove. So, you know, keep an eye on it. All right. So that is good enough for me. And I'm gonna turn it down how low? I'm gonna turn it down until I get the water, keep the water moving, stays moving, but we're not boiling out of control. It's not gonna end up all over the stove when I do walk away from it. But we don't wanna poach them. We don't want the water just shivering. We want it to have some movement in it. And my dial on my stove goes all the way up to 6 and then high. So right now this is at like number 3. And that's cool. That's like a good speed. And I'll come back and I'll stir them. I'll probably give them like, 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'll taste one or, fork test one, and we'll go through that next. Okay, let's have a quick little test. I know it's not my silicone spoon, but I'm not stirring anything. I'm just gonna grab, like a good sized piece, something that looks average in here, and put it on a bowl, and I'm gonna cut it in half with the edge of my spoon. And I'm looking for it to go through like smooth, but with a little bit of resistance. And then I want it to be tender, but starchy when I eat it. And I like that one, but here's a slightly bigger one. So let's see what we get here. That's nice, just kind of pushes right through. We could call it fork tender, even though I'm using a spoon. So it's time to drain them. Shake all the water out of there. Okay, so my potatoes are drained, and it's been a couple minutes. There's a little bit of a distraction, but really just drain them, and we're gonna go into this bowl. And camera number 2. We're gonna add cream and butter and salt, and that's it. And of course we could add other things like horseradish or, truffle oil or goat cheese, or we're keeping it simple. Fundamentals here, basics. So how much butter am I adding? Don't worry, I'm adding this much. You'll see over here. I know I have 60 grams of butter in here for the 3 potatoes that I've got, and I know it's probably going to be plenty, and it's been sitting here tempering, so it's kind of soft. It wouldn't be a bad idea to heat up the cream, but I'm not making a very big batch, and it would be kind of, a small amount of cream, so I'm sticking with cold cream and then just room temperature butter. And if you don't have one of these potato masher things, you should get one. It's one of those kitchen tool staples that you just have, and you use it for maybe just a couple things a few times a year. If you had a food mill, like a ricer, you could rice your potatoes and your butter through the food mill, but with such a small batch of potatoes, it seems like using a food mill might be a little bit more work than it's worth. And there's a little bit of room for interpretation here. If you like lumpy potatoes, don't smash them up as much. So you got cream here. Cream from Stanger Ranch. And you could use whole milk, but it won't be as good. You could use non-fat milk and it won't be as good. You should use cream. Like if you try and skimp out and do like low fat, healthy there are no healthy mashed potatoes. They're healthy because they're organic potatoes and it's unpasteurized cream from the local farm, so they're healthy. But if you're gonna try and skimp on the fat, they're not gonna be as good as if you did them the right way with cream and butter. And I'm using just some Kerrygold unsalted butter because I wanna have control over the salt that I'm putting in here. A whisk could be a alternate tool to mash up your potatoes. That would also work well. And I got a spatula in here just to see what I've got. And I'm looking for them to be thick, but also, kind of spreadable. Like they're gonna stand up, they're mashed potatoes. I'm gonna get a little more cream. And I don't wanna make them wet and soupy. We're making mashed potatoes, not, potato soup. And I'm gonna taste them. So I like this consistency here. You could see, see if I spread it along the sides, there is a lump. You'll see it in that camera. So it's not like I've pureed them to oblivion. They're gonna have like a hint of texture, but the potatoes were cooked all the way through. Spoon, taste test. And my salt is good. Like I nailed the water. I'm not actually gonna add any more salt to this. And as far as serving them, if you were going to the plate right now, I might recommend heating them back up in a pot. Get them really hot, maybe get a little bit more butter in them, and then if you're going family style, put them in a bowl and go family style. Okay, so if you're not serving these right now hot, you can put them in a pot or a bowl and cover them with a piece of parchment paper over the top. And then later, when it's dinner time, like right now it's not dinner time yet, I'm just gonna let them hang out. I'm not gonna refrigerate them. I'm just gonna let them, countertop, piece of parchment paper on top of them. And when it is time to heat them up, in a pot, a little bit of cream, gentle heat, little butter, mix them around, heat them up. If you need more salt because you're adding more cream, more butter, add more salt. And taste your food. If you don't taste it, you're never gonna know what's good or what's on everybody else's plate. And this would be amazing with some slow braised beef stew. Okay, so here's my pot of potatoes. Just like in the restaurant. Like in a restaurant, they're not making you mashed potatoes right away when you order them. They've been made in advance, so they gotta heat them up. So I'm gonna go some low heat, put my potatoes on here. I'm gonna add just a little bit of cream. Cover it. And we're just gonna let it come up real slow. And I got a spatula here to stir it. Okay, so there's cream in there, but I'm also gonna throw in a pat of butter. So I'll just slice this right off of my Kerrygold brick of butter. And I'm gonna say I need a little bit more than that. So I know we added a whole bunch of butter and cream to start, and we need more butter and cream because remember, this is what makes good mashed potatoes. No, wait, not good. Excellent mashed potatoes. The kind that everybody says, oh my God, these are the best mashed potatoes I've ever had. So it's starting to simmer a little bit on the edge, and I'm just gonna mix it around a little bit. I don't want to go like boiling these and like brown them on the bottom. But you know, all the heat's going to come from the bottom, so we got to take the hot stuff on the bottom and bring it to the top. And it's pretty thick right now. I'll probably add a little bit more cream. And total, how much did I use? Well, this is a 16-ounce cup, and it was probably about 2/3 full of cream when we started. And I've got probably maybe a quarter of my total volume left. A little hot. I don't want it simmering that hard. And as it gets hotter, like all the fat that's in the potatoes is going to loosen it up. So you don't want to go crazy and add a ton of cream right now because it is going to get looser as you go. So you see like streak of butter, a little chunk of butter melting in there. That is also going to add some, you know, more of a wetness to it. And you are in charge. If you like a really wet, smooth, soupier mashed potato, go ahead, go for more cream, go for a little bit more butter. If you add lots of butter, it will eventually taste like butter. There is a limit to how much butter you can add before it is too much. So in this kind of stage, you know, go slow, use cream to find the consistency that you like. There are no rules here. You are in charge. So you've got to decide what feels right to you. Yep. And I'm just gonna make a taste because I want to make sure that the cream that I'm adding is not killing the salt that I had established when I cooked it. So that's cool. I'm gonna turn it down low while I do other things. Okay, so you can hear it, right? Sizzling. It's getting a bit hot. I just turned it down real low. And I just tasted it, and after, you know, adding the cream to get it the consistency I want, it's a little flat, meaning it needs a little salt. And this is plenty hot. You can see it kind of, you know, sizzling against the side of the pot. If you leave it unattended, you will burn it on the bottom. You know, just like pot of tomato sauce, you got to stir it. You don't need to stir it the whole time, but, you know, don't forget about your mashed potatoes. All right. And taste it one more time because I just added salt. I like it. And now it's dinner time.